The key was taped under the sink, where the landlord insisted they'd never seen anything weird. The note said, "Use this tonight. Don't tell anyone. Not Evan. Not Bree." Under it, my name and my Aunt Marisol's tight, looping script, the same handwriting I hadn't seen since we buried her last winter. I read it twice, hands shaking, because I hadn't told anyone I was staying at the Evergreen Lodge off I-84. I hadn't told anyone that the only thing in my fridge was half a lemon and a dented can of seltzer. 7 weeks earlier I had a husband, a small but steady job at a nonprofit, and a best friend who knew my Wi-Fi password and my worst secrets. Evan and Bree, the people I thought were my net. Turns out, they were gravity. Let me back up, at least to the moment my life tipped. It was a Monday, a nothing day. I'd left the office early after my director, Olivia, pulled me into a glass-walled room to say budget realignments with the kind of gentleness reserved for hospice halls. I walked home with a paper box of desk plants and staplers and the little ceramic cat Bree gave me last Christmas. When I reached our building, I could hear laughter from the hallway outside our apartment, Evan's soft, throat-low chuckle, and Bree's sharper one, the one she used when she wanted to sound effortless. I opened the door and learned how thin a person can feel and still remain standing. They were in the kitchen. Not tangled, worse. Comfortable. Bree was barefoot on my tile, drinking from the mug Evan's sister made me. Evan had his hand at her waist like it had lived there forever. They didn't look startled. They looked relieved. "Lena," he said like a dentist delivering news about a tooth that was already dead. Bree set the mug down, my mug, and said, "You knew something was off. This is better, better. As if facts are kinder than wounds." I packed a duffel in 5 minutes and made it to the curb just as a rideshare rolled past, the driver squinting like he wished he could pretend he hadn't seen me crying. I spent that first night on my cousin Mateo's couch, the second on a coworker's air mattress, the third negotiating with the Evergreen Lodge's night clerk, who slid me a key to room 19 with a look that said she'd seen this exact collapse before. By Friday, Olivia accelerated my exit paperwork. Severance, 1 paycheck and a pep talk. The apartment? Evan kept it since he's on the lease. My savings? Mostly eaten by a credit card balance I hadn't paid enough attention to because marriage felt like a plan, like a safety net. Friends? They split like spilled salt. Everyone texted little white hearts and then muted the thread. The algorithm moved on. So there I was at the Evergreen, room smelling like lemon cleaner over old smoke, scrolling job boards at 2 a.m. and eating peanut butter crackers for dinner. The mirror made my face look like it belonged to a distant cousin. I tried not to practice conversations with people who no longer answered. On the 7th night, the faucet in the tiny kitchenette coughed cold water over my wrists. That's when I saw the tape. Someone, sometime, had pressed a strip of gray duct tape under the sink lip, odd enough to make me pry it up with a butter knife. The key fell into my palm, brass, old-fashioned, stamped with a number, 114B, and wrapped in a folded note. "Lena, take this to box 114B at East Bank Storage. Use cash. Tonight. No one else. Aunt Marisol, my mother's sister, patron saint of suspicious receipts and tidy file folders. She died in January, her heart finally giving up after years of chemo and stubbornness. She'd kept her secrets like she kept her kitchen, labeled, stacked, reachable if you knew where to look. When I was 9, she taught me to hide spare cash in a frozen bag of peas because no thief puts their hand in frost. When I was 21, she told me, paper trails are just stories with numbers. Keep yours boring. I put on a hoodie and tucked my hair under a cap. The night clerk barely glanced at me as I crossed the lot. East Bank Storage sat 3 blocks over, lit by buzzing halogens that made the asphalt look like old bruises. A man with a ponytail smoked near the gate and nodded like we were members of the same club. I fed 520s into a kiosk that wore a smiley face sticker over a cracked screen and watched it spit out a visitor code. Unit Roby smelled like dust and rain. I used the key, it fit like it had been waiting for me, and lifted the roll-up door just enough to duck inside. A single metal shelving unit stood along the back wall. On the middle shelf sat a dented gray lockbox with a scuffed corner and a strip of masking tape across the top, El Morales. I didn't breathe until the second key, the tiny one that had been taped to the big key, clicked and the lid swung back. Cash. More than I'd ever seen outside a bank teller's glass. Band after band of bills, mostly hundreds, 50s tucked at the edges. Beneath the top layer, a folded itinerary, one way to Albuquerque, departing in 3 days. Flight number, seat 24A. And under that, a handwritten note, blue ink neat and uncompromising. This is gas money. The engine is at this address. When you get there, ask for the register. Do not call Evan. Do not call Brianna. They were not accidents. My stomach tilted. They were not accidents. The words sat there like a held breath. I read them again, then the line below that made my mouth go dry. Your mother didn't fall asleep at the wheel, Lena. She was pushed off the road. Finish what she started. I sank onto the concrete, the key biting my palm. My mother's crash was 4 years ago, rain slicking the highway, the sheriff's department writing likely fatigue on a line that no one in my family had the energy to argue with. Marisol had muttered about bad timing and loose screws at Haven Bridge Logistics, my mother's employer, but we'd filed the whispers under grief. I lifted the cash bands and found a thin envelope. Inside, a photocopy of a check stub from Haven Bridge Community Fund to be Dalton, Bree's last name, for consulting, 3 months before my wedding. The amount, $4,500. A spreadsheet printout mapping deposits into Evan's separate account labeled retainer. Retainer for what? I tasted metal. Love doesn't come with itemized billing. And yet there it was. The rest of the box held a prepaid phone with a single contact named Sparrow, a flash drive, and a narrow keycard stamped with a Lotus logo I recognized from downtown, the Haven Bridge campus gym. On the flash drive, a sticky note, watch with headphones. Door deadbolt first. Back in room 19, I locked the door, slid the chair under the knob like a cliché, and pressed play. The first video was security footage, a loading dock, the timestamp 3 days before my mother died. Rain. A forklift. A pallet wrapped in black plastic marked NON hazardous. A man in a reflective vest waved the driver through, then removed the sticker and replaced it with a skull and crossbones label like he was swapping a hat. The next clip, the same man in a break room, seated across from my mother as she slid a folder over and said, either we fix this, or I go to state regulators. Clear as day. Calm. The woman I loved who never raised her voice when the truth could do the work. My hands were shaking so hard I had to pause. On the prepaid phone, a text buzzed in from Sparrow. If you found the dock footage, you're on the right track. Do not use your old email. Leave town on the ticket. I'll meet you in Albuquerque. We use first names only. Bring the keycard. Then, a second message, and Lena, don't tell anyone. They'll make it look like a coincidence. It won't be. I stared at the door until my pupils ached. I thought of Bree barefoot in my kitchen, of Evan with his patient voice, of my mother's steady hands. The motel's air conditioner clicked on like a trigger, and for the first time since Monday, I let myself imagine I wasn't just surviving. I was moving. Evan told me I'd fall apart without him. Bree said this is better. Maybe they'd both written their lines in advance. I packed the lockbox into my duffel and slid the keycard into my wallet behind an old photo booth strip of my mother and me, faces half out of frame, laughing. I didn't sleep. I counted the hours until morning like a prisoner counting bricks. At sunrise, I walked to the front desk to pay for 3 more nights in cash. The clerk looked at the roll of bills, then at me. You okay, hon? Not yet, I said. But I think I'm pointed in the right direction. I went back to the room, stood under the hot shower until my skin flushed, and memorized the address on Marisol's note. Then I opened my laptop, deleted every message thread with Evan and Bree, and drafted a single email to my cousin Mateo. I'm leaving town for a bit. Don't worry. I'll be safe. I didn't hit send. Sparrow had said no old accounts. I closed the lid. The silence felt like a new language. 3 days until Albuquerque. 3 days to hold my nerve. I took the ceramic cat from my severance box and set it on the wobbly nightstand. It grinned up at me with that stupid painted smile. Okay, I told it, because talking to a fake cat felt saner than talking to the past. We're going. I wasn't supposed to see her. Sparrow said silence. Marisol said move. But the thing about betrayal is it leaves a taste you can't swallow, and I couldn't board a plane with that in my mouth. So I texted Bree from a number she didn't know. Coffee at Haven and Pine? 11 a.m. It's Lena. I just want 5 minutes. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. 5 minutes. Haven and Pine is all white tile and plants, the kind of place where oat milk comes with moral superiority. I got there early and chose a table near the window with the street at my back, because you learn tiny forms of self-defense when your life cracks. I kept the prepaid phone in my pocket and my regular phone powered off in my bag. The lockbox stayed in the motel room buried under jeans. I brought only one thing, a photocopy of the check stub from the Haven Bridge Community Fund to be Dalton. I folded it in thirds like a letter I was ready to mail to my old self. Bree arrived in sunglasses and a confidence coat, the tan trench she wore to big pitches, like we were about to sell an idea to a roomful of strangers. She took them off and tried for soft. You look, okay. You look prepared, I said. She sat, arms crossed in that way that reads open from far away and defensive up close. You said 5 minutes. I will be quick. I slid the photocopy across the table. What was the consulting? Her gaze flickered, just a flash, and then she smiled the way you smile at a toddler asking why the sky is blue. I do brand audits on the side sometimes, you know that. Not from a company where I never saw you step foot, I said. 3 months before my wedding? Lena, this is petty. A little edge now. We're all grown-ups. I'm sorry I hurt you, I truly am, but dragging up bank statements. You testified in my divorce, I said. You told a judge I was unstable. I kept my voice level, hands palm down on the table. So let's not use the word petty. She leaned back like I'd splashed water. I said what I needed to say to expedite a process that was already inevitable. You and Evan weren't working. I was honest. I unfolded the second page, Evan's retainer deposits. What's this? Her jaw tightened. Not your business. Try again. I felt something inside me go very, very still. My mother called it the accountant's calm, the moment you stop arguing with numbers and make them add up. Marisol kept ledgers. She left me a few. Bree's eyes flicked to the window, to the door, to my hands. How much did she give you? Enough to ask better questions. She laughed, a brittle sound. Of course she did. Your aunt never understood boundaries. Then softer, as if we were two friends again, she made you suspicious of everyone. You know that, right? This, paranoia isn't healthy. The word landed like a stamp, paranoia. I pictured my mother in the loading dock footage, sliding that folder across the table, precise even in rain. She hadn't been paranoid. She'd been meticulous. There's a difference. I kept my eyes on Bree. What did Haven Bridge pay you to do? It was a scholarship committee, she said too fast. I reviewed submissions. No. My voice surprised me. It was the tone I used to get donors to stop performing and start telling the truth. They paid you to be my friend. To keep me close. To keep me manageable. I swallowed. How long? Bree's face went careful. For a second, the trench coat, the hair, the perfect nails slipped, and there she was, a person who'd made a deal and built a life around not naming it. This is so dramatic, she said, quieter now. Evan and I, what happened between us, has nothing to do with some conspiracy in your head. I reached into my tote and placed the gym keycard on the table, Lotus logo up. Her pupils changed. It was the smallest thing, a shutter click. She knew it. I'm leaving town, I said. I'm giving you a last chance to say one true sentence to me before I go. Her jaw worked. Okay, she said at last, and for a second I thought I might get it, one clean line I could file. A true sentence? I loved you, she said, and the word landed wrong in my ear. You were my best friend. I stared at her. Then I reached to slide the keycard back, but Bree's hand shot forward, more reflex than choice, and pressed it down. Where did you get this? My chest tightened, but I kept my expression flat. From the box with my name on it. She withdrew her hand as if the plastic had burned. You don't understand what you're digging into. Explain it. I can't. Because you signed something? Because someone will hurt you? I leaned in. Will they hurt me? She swallowed. The cafe soundtrack hummed on, a vinyl crackle and a guitar that sounded too bright for the moment. Bree's hands trembled, barely. Just leave it, Lena, she whispered. Go start over somewhere. Please. That's not an answer. Sometimes the answer is safety. Safety for who? She looked at me then with something like pity, or fear. Don't go to Haven Bridge, she said. Don't use that card. Don't meet anyone from any number you don't recognize. They're not your people. Who are they? I asked. But whatever line she'd nudged against slammed shut. Bree stood, gathering the trench around her like armor. I have to go. She slipped on her sunglasses. I hope you find peace. Peace is the word people throw when they mean silence. She left without touching me. I sat there until my coffee went cold. A barista came by to clear my cup and said, everything okay? Sure, I lied. Outside, the sky had that tight, pre-storm shine. I walked 2 blocks, then 3, then ducked into a doorway and exhaled. My prepaid phone buzzed. Unknown, you have something that belongs to us. Return the keycard to security desk B before 3 p.m. No harm, no foul. A minute later, unknown, Ms. Morales, our wellness program is here for you. Let us help you de-escalate. Wellness, safety, peace, every euphemism stacked like sandbags. I turned the phone off. I crossed the river and circled twice before heading back to the Evergreen by back streets, watching my reflection double in storefront glass. In the room, I slid the bolt and listened. Nothing but the air conditioner's polite sigh. I opened the lockbox, replaced the keycard, counted the bands. Then I wrote 2 sentences in my notebook the way Marisol used to do when panic was a bully. I will not meet anyone alone. I will not tell anyone where I'm going. At noon, Evan called my regular phone 3 times, straight to voicemail, then texted, "Can we talk like adults?" Bree said, "You're spiraling." I typed, deleted. Then I put the phone in the microwave, closed the door, and left it there unplugged like it could quarantine a past life. I bought a burner backpack at a discount store, black, anonymous, zippers that didn't scream. I packed only what I could afford to lose and what I couldn't, the flash drive, the prepaid, the box. I taped the ceramic cat under the bed frame, my own breadcrumb for a future me who might circle back. At 4 a.m., I checked out. The night clerk slid my receipt across the counter. "Safe travels, hon." "Peace," I said before I could stop myself, and it tasted like iron. I drove to the airport while the city yawned. Every taillight looked like a warning I didn't have time to read. At security, I kept my eyes on the floor and my hands clean. At the gate, I sat with my back to the wall and watched the boarding door like it could blink first. When they called Group C, I stood. I'd wanted one true sentence from Bree. I got a map instead. The places not to go, the doors not to open, the words meant to make me small. Which means I'm pointed exactly where Marisol wanted me, toward whatever lives under the nice language. Seat 24A. One way. I walked down the jetway and did not look back. A balloon popped behind me and my whole body flinched. The Old Town Plaza clapped and cheered for the street performer who'd made a heart from air, but all I heard was the echo of that small explosion ricocheting around my chest. I kept my eyes on the paper boat of roasted green chili peanuts in my lap and counted breaths until the shake left my hands. "Don't look up yet," a voice said from the bench's other end, low, steady, almost bored. "Tell me the color of Marisol's front door." "Teal," I answered, throat tight. "Chipped at the bottom right." "Good," the voice said. A pause, the whisper of a jacket sleeve. "Now you can look." She was in her 40s maybe, with a baseball cap pulled low and reflective sunglasses that turned the plaza into a smear of moving light. Brown corduroy jacket, jeans, a canvas tote that said something about a literacy fair. Not a spy. Not a cop. Someone's aunt who organized bake sales and never forgot name tags. That's what she looked like, which made me trust her more. "You're Sparrow," I said. "Today," she said. "I change birds when I have to." She stuck out a hand like we were at a PTA meeting. "Miriam." Her palm was dry, grip sure. She kept her gaze on the kids chasing pigeons. "How much of the box did you open?" "All of it," I said. "Cash, ticket, flash drive, the keycard." I felt it in my wallet like a live wire. "And the videos." "Then you understand Haven Bridge doesn't call threats threats," she said. "They call them wellness checks." "I got texts," I said. "And a coffee with a friend who used the word peace like it was a leash." Miriam's mouth quirked, not quite a smile. "They always pick soft words. Easier to sell." She shifted the tote so the long strap crossed her chest. "Okay. The address Marisol gave you?" I read it from memory. "Good," she said. "We'll go, but not together. I'm moving first. You'll follow after 10 minutes, left side of San Felipe, look at the second-story windows as you pass, not at street level. If you think you're followed, step into any shop and ask for pinyon fudge. If the clerk says they're out, you stay. If they say it's fresh, you leave by the back." She said it like she was reciting a recipe. "I'm not a movie," I said, more defensive than I meant to. "I'm a person who spent last week at the Evergreen Lodge teaching her face not to cry." "That's why we do this in public," she said. "Because you're a person." She angled her head the slightest degree. "You were right not to confront your husband. You were almost right to meet your friend." "Almost? Sometimes it's useful to watch someone tell you the truth wrong," she said. "It shows you where the real outline is." A tour group clustered in front of us, the guide lifting a little flag, rattling off history about Spanish settlers and adobe. I listened to the cadence without hearing words. Miriam tapped the tote with one knuckle. "Your mother sent me the first file 2 weeks before her crash," she said, voice so soft it barely made air. A risk matrix she built on her kitchen table. She used sticky notes, different colors. She wrote, "If I vanish, ask Marisol for the register." "The register," I repeated. "What is it? A book?" "It was once," Miriam said. "Marisol kept a double ledger, one for taxes, one for truth. But what you're going to ask for today is a code. It tells an old man behind a counter to hand you the thing he promised to keep until someone knew the phrase." She stood like she'd decided for both of us. Time. We didn't walk together. Miriam rounded the plaza's north side, blending into a family with a stroller. I counted to 600, stood, tossed the empty peanut boat, and headed down San Felipe. Sun pressed hot between the buildings, shadows sliced cool across my ankles. I looked where she told me, second-story windows. Every now and then, a sliver of my reflection glanced back, startled and steady. The shop was a clock repair place with a bell that sounded like a real bell, not a fake one through a speaker. Clocks of every age chimed out of sync. Behind the counter stood an old man with a navy cardigan and a pocket watch on a chain. He looked up at me, then past me, out the window, then back at me. His eyes were the exact color of green glass bottles. "Afternoon," he said. "I'm here for the register," I said. I felt ridiculous and also like my tongue had found a key. He didn't blink. "Which line?" "The one that doesn't balance," I said, guessing. Miriam's mouth would have corked again. He nodded once, slow, and disappeared through a beaded curtain. I heard a cabinet start and stop, the scrape of a drawer. He returned with an old receipt book, the carbon pages crisp and thin, and a bubble-wrapped cartridge the size of 2 postage stamps, the kind that slides into a dash cam. He put both on the counter, resting his palm on them until I met his eyes. "She said you'd be polite," he said. "She said you'd be patient until you learned how not to be." I swallowed. "Was she scared?" He considered. "She was angry," he said. "It's different." He lifted his hand. "Count your steps on the way out. If you get 4 past the door and someone asks the time, you don't answer." The bell rang at my shoulder as someone entered. The old man's gaze flicked over my head and back down. "And now you go." I slid both items into my bag, thanked him, and stepped outside. 1, 2, 3, 4. "Excuse me," a man's voice behind me said. "Do you have the time?" I didn't turn. I crossed the street with the light, my heart pounding while tourist music, the kind of bright guitar made for postcards, floated from somewhere I couldn't place. In a shop window, 2 reflections paused, me and a man in a slate blazer, no tie. He put a hand to his ear like his hair itched. "Tradecraft 4, I'm listening to someone else." I kept walking until the block ended, then slipped into a candy store and asked for pinyon fudge. "Fresh," the clerk said, smiling, box already in hand. Back on the street, my prepaid buzzed. "Sparrow, good. 2 blocks east, south side. Blue awning." I followed the instructions into a cafe that smelled like cinnamon and relief. Miriam sat with a to-go cup and 2 waters, her cap off now, dark hair braided tight. She didn't ask if I'd been followed, she could see it on my face. "Receipt book?" she asked. I slid it over. She opened to the middle and angled it so only we could see. Names written in pencil, amounts, dates that bracketed my wedding. B. Dalton, Consulting, 4,500. E. Rains, Retainer, 1,200, 1,200, 1,200. A list of other initials I didn't know yet. At the bottom of one page, Marisol's small notation in red, CF equals Community Fund Shell. I knew, I said quietly, a tremor in it I couldn't iron out. I mean, I didn't know, but I knew I wasn't crazy. "You were accurate," Miriam said. "Which is harder?" She tapped the bubble-wrapped cartridge. "This goes with the loading dock footage," she said. "Different angle. A trucker pulled over when he saw your mother get run off. He sent the card to Marisol, then got scared and stopped answering. We digitize this, and we don't keep a copy on anything that has ever touched your name." "Why me?" I asked, sudden and raw. Why did they thread me into any of it? I write emails for nonprofits. I buy discount lettuce and use coupons. Why me? "Because you were close to the person who said no," Miriam said simply. "And because you were good. Good people stay predictable longer, they don't expect the shove. Doesn't mean we stay that way." We sat for a minute, letting the air conditioner whisper, letting the fact of all of it exist without rushing to fill it. Finally, Miriam slid a sheet of paper across the table. "An address. A time. This is a print shop near the university," she said. "Back room. They run a scanner that's not connected to the internet. We make a forensic image of the dashcam card there. After that, we decide what to burn and what to hand to someone who can carry it. Police? Eventually. But first," she glanced at my wallet where the edge of the Lotus card peaked. "You're going to use that." I must have made a face because she nodded as if agreeing with my own fear. "Public places get you only so far," she said. "The sub-basement where Haven Bridge keeps the paper forms isn't public. Tonight is staff yoga night. Half of security B goes to stretch. You go in as if you belong, and you walk out with a binder that says a lot without any garnish." "Alone?" I asked. "Not alone," she said. "But you'll go first, because you're just ordinary enough to be invisible." We finished the waters. Miriam stood and melted into the flow of afternoon the way she'd arrived, like a person doing errands. I waited 5 minutes, then took a different door and walked into the bright heat, the dashcam card like a heartbeat in my bag. Tonight, a building with a Lotus on the door. A hall that smelled like eucalyptus and disinfectant. A binder that might change how the numbers add up. I looked at the tourists posing with giant metal chili peppers and thought, I will not be small in my own story again. We started at the print shop because proof steadies hands. The grab behind the counter wore a sweatshirt that said Kramer vs. Paper and pointed us to a back room with an ancient flatbed scanner and a sign that read cash only, like that alone made it off-grid. Miriam laid the dashcam card on a velvet square the way a jeweler treats stones, made a forensic image onto 2 encrypted sticks, and crushed the temporary working copy with a rubber mallet she pulled from her tote. Drama, I said, because the crack startled me. Reduces temptation, she said. Now, an ally. I thought she meant herself, but she slid me a sticky note with a name, Aisha Delgado. Compliance analyst, Miriam said. Your mother mentored her when Aisha was an intern. Aisha filed 3 incident reports last year about mislabeled pallets. HR put her on professional development and moved her to community fund paperwork. The shell that paid Bree, I finished. She's still inside, Miriam said. Scared, careful, but not broken. If she won't help, we don't go in tonight. We set the meet at the only place you can be private in public, a bowling alley where neon eats faces. Skylane smelled like rented shoes and sugar. Miriam bowled a frame to look like we were there for a birthday that never showed. I waited near the vending machines, palms pressed against the cool metal like prayer. A woman in a slate sweater and black jeans took the stool beside mine. Hair in a low bun. No jewelry except a thin silver band at the thumb. She didn't look at me. Color coding, she said softly. What color did Catherine use for high risk? Red, I said. And she always used square sticky notes for policy gaps. Circles were people problems. A tiny smile. Good. I can't talk long. She held out a hand without turning. Aisha. Lena. Marisol said you'd find me if things went bad enough, Aisha murmured. I told her that was fatalistic. She said it was practical. You filed reports about the doc, I said. I filed reports about a culture, she corrected. The doc is a symptom. She took out her phone and opened a calculator, thumbs moving like she was doing long division. A line of digits appeared, 738 to 421. Sweet number, she said. Sub-basement. The paper archive for the community fund. No network connects to those binders. They keep it physical so there are no subpoenas for servers that don't exist. How do we get in? Staff yoga means security runs light between 6 and 7:30 on Thursdays, Aisha said. The back hallway to the archive has a badge reader that gets glitchy when the dehumidifiers kick on. Maintenance never fixed it, they just put a sticky note on the reader that says wiggle. You wiggle fast, it reads amber to green. You just, tell me this? I asked. You don't even know if I'm. I know how your mother made tea, she said, and something in me buckled. She microwaved the water because the kettle woke your dad, but she always put the bag in after because she said bitterness blooms too fast if you steep in boil. I watched her do it for a summer. My throat burned. I didn't know anyone noticed. Good people notice, she said. We watched 3 boys argue over a gutter ball while the neon bathed us both in alien blue. What do you need from me? Aisha asked. A weigh-in that won't get you fired, Miriam said, appearing at my shoulder with a plastic cup and the kind of smile you wear for security cameras. Preferably deniable. Aisha exhaled through her nose. I can generate a visitor badge for a vendor evaluation. We're due for one, she said. You'll be escorted to the wrong floor by a temp who will get lost on the way back. The temp will have the flu and a note from her supervisor. You have 20 minutes. I'll flip the yoga schedule so security thinks 2 more bodies are in the studio. But after tonight, I can't do more. I need to stay employed long enough to jump. Understood, Miriam said. We don't need you to be a hero, we need you to be a hinge. Aisha scribbled a number on the back of a bumper sticker and slid it to me. Text only from the prepaid. Phrase low humidity means go. High humidity means abort. If you don't hear back, you never met me. She stood as if we'd just talked about a PTA bake sale. One more thing, she said, finally looking at me full on. If they corner you, don't argue. People who want to scare you don't deserve explanation. I learned that at Haven and Pine, I said. Her mouth tilted. I heard about the trench coat. She pressed her lips together. Be quick. She vanished into the arcade glow like a figure swallowed by a jukebox. We had 3 hours. Back at the cafe with the blue awning, we ran edges. Miriam drew a map on a paper napkin. Lobby, elevators, mezzanine, stairs down to a service corridor, the wiggle reader, the archive, the binder wall, a copy station that wasn't networked but had a hidden memory. Never print from it, she said. Photograph with your phone in airplane mode, then airdrop to the burner. Wipe both with bleach after. Don't touch your regular phone. I laid out the things that mattered. prepaid, burner, empty tote with a thrift store logo, Lotus keycard. The dashcam copy, one stick, went under a patch of Velcro inside my jacket, where nervous fingers couldn't fidget it out. At 5:42, Aisha texted, low humidity. Lobby desk expecting vendor eval for binder relocation. Name, Elena Ramirez. Close enough to my own name to answer to it, different enough to be deniable. Miriam squeezed my wrist once and melted into a group of office workers carrying yoga mats. Havenbridge lobby smelled like eucalyptus and money. Lotus logos everywhere, subtle on glass, loud on a relief wall. The woman at the desk took one look at Aisha's appointment block and printed the badge. Stickers already got your photo, she chirped. We love speed. The badge had my face. I couldn't place the picture, maybe scraped from LinkedIn before I locked everything down. The word vendor sat under my name like permission and threat. Conference room B12, the desk woman said. Ruben will escort you. She paused to cough neatly into her elbow. He's new. Ruben looked 19 and exhausted. He led me to the elevator, pressed B, and watched the panel blink without seeing it. Lot of yoga tonight, he said. Smells like orange peels. It's calming, I said, because that's what people say about smells that are designed to make you obedient. He walked me to a glass-walled conference room 2 floors down, waved vaguely at a stack of cardboard boxes, and then his phone buzzed. Shoot, he said. I have to get back to shipping. Can you find your way? Sure, I said. I'll ping when I'm done. He vanished into the hum of vents and lift doors. I waited a beat, then stepped out, turned left like a person who belongs, and found the service corridor with the painted cinder block and the humming dehumidifiers. The badge reader at the far door blinked yellow. I slid the card down, the light stuttered, stayed amber. I wiggled, fast, small, a movement you'd miss if you weren't looking. The light ticked to green. Inside, cold air, the smell of paper, that muffled quiet big buildings keep in their bones. On the right, a wall of gray binders with white labels printed in a font that wanted to be harmless. Community fund/disbursements/20xx. On the left, a desk with a sign that said do not remove files and a copier with a tiny gray scab where a label had been peeled away. My phone in airplane mode. My tote open. My heart finding it slow, accountant's calm. I pulled 2019 Q3 and flipped. Names like pebbles I recognized by feel, B. Dalton, E. Rains. Others, small nonprofits with initials I'd seen on tote bags around town. Some entries had tiny pencil dots next to them, Marisol's mark, or someone else who'd learned from her. At the back, a sheet tabbed retention with signatures and a rubber stamp from a judge I knew from the divorce docket. Miriam's text glowed on the prepaid where I'd set it on the desk, 6 minutes. I raised my phone, clicked, click click, moving fast without blur, binder after binder like I was painting a wall with light. Footsteps in the hall. Not jogging, confident. A key in the lock? Or imagination? I kept shooting. I kept breathing. The doorknob turned. The knob turned, the latch kissed back, and a man in a slate blazer stepped into the archive like he owned the oxygen. No tie, badge on a retractable reel, the kind of posture that says he hasn't been told no in months. He clocked the open binders, my tote, my vendor sticker. My phone kept taking photos because my thumb kept moving. Click, click. Can I help you? He asked, voice polite in the way knives are shiny. I let the accountant's calm slide over me. Binder relocation audit, I said, tilting the 2019 Q3 spine so the label faced him. Vendor eval for offsite transfer. The humidity variance down here is non-compliant with the current retention schedule. I nodded toward the dehumidifier humming like a sleepy animal. Reader's sticky. Had to wiggle. He didn't move. Work order number? WR 738421, I said, stealing the 6 digits Aisha had given me and adding the prefix like I'd always known it. Click. He took the smallest step closer, eyes flicking to the copier, to the desk sign. No files are to be removed. Per SOPR, I agreed, flipping to a tab marked retention and photographing the stamp beneath the judge's signature I recognized from my divorce docket. I'm just confirming volumes. Will box on site. Iron Mountain pickup window next week if you pass the eval. Click. Radio static crackled someplace under his blazer. A woman's voice, security B to wellness studio, we're at capacity. He thumbed his mic without looking away from me. Copy. To me, we keep these materials for donor transparency. Of course, I said, lifting disbursements 2018 Q4. B. Dalton, consulting, 4,500. E. Rains, retainer, 1,200, recurring. A nonprofit I knew as legit, right beside a community fund pilot with no EIN listed. Click click. Transparency's a river, I added mildly. It runs both ways. He smiled like we were doing banter at a gala. Which vendor are you with? Northstar Records, I said, because it sounded like a company that mails you boxes and bills you in polite fonts. Click. He watched my hands. I turned a page and froze, not visibly, I hoped. Incident Response Plan, Vehicle Event Protocol. Subheader, Guidance for External Communications in the Event of Employee Motor Vehicle Fatalities. A bullet point, emphasize weather conditions and fatigue, avoid mention of pending reports. In the margin, a dot of red pencil. Marisol's dot? Or someone who learned her grammar of outrage. I shot the page 3 times, wide, detail, stamp. Click click click. Ruben should have stayed with you, he said. New hires sometimes miss that. He was pulled by shipping, I said. I'm fine. I changed binders like a card trick and landed on visitor logs, community fund. There, in thin black ink, Dalton, Brianna, Program Design Consult, 10 a.m. Cleared by C. Fellows. Date, 3 months before my wedding. Another entry 2 weeks later, Rains, Evan, Advisory Retainer, cleared by legal. I swallowed air that felt too warm. Click. He shifted his weight, considering me like a chess problem that should be over by now. I'll need to see the work order. Upstairs, I said pleasantly. Conference B12. We're a paper-first vendor, ironically. You're welcome to escort me when I'm done checking volumes. Click. My prepaid vibrated once on the desk without lighting, 4 minutes from Miriam. My heart noted the countdown and refused to speed up. Behind him, the light in the hall flickered, the building breathed. Somewhere above us, a swell of distant laughter, yoga class stretch and sigh. He glanced toward it, then back to me, the calculation quick as a camera shutter. Finish your count, he said finally. Do not copy. He touched the door frame with 2 fingers like he was claiming it and left. I exhaled, a careful pour rather than a dump. 3 minutes 30. I photographed faster, flipping bindings like a dealer. External grants, off-cycle, a judge's wellness speaking fee routed through a leadership institute. Security outreach logs, tiled appointments labeled home check, L. Morales, status, escalated, the date 1 week after my mother's crash. The word escalated made the room shiver. Click click click. 2 minutes. I slid 2018 to 2020 back into place, aligning spines, palming the phone to the tote. The copier tempted like a too easy sin. I didn't touch it. I wiped the desk with the corner of my sleeve where I'd sprayed sanitizer, not because prints mattered, no one knew my name yet, but because ritual steadies your spine. At the door, I paused, held breath, listened. Quiet. Reader blinking amber. Wiggle. Green. The corridor coughed me out into the brighter world of vents and glass. I took 3 normal person turns, past 2 employees carrying jade yoga mats and the citrusy smell of someone else's piece, and reappeared in B12 where the boxes waited like props from a play I had no intention of performing. I texted Aisha, low humidity. Then I sent Miriam one word, silver. We'd decided silver meant I had something uniquely ugly. Ruben materialized at the end of the hall, cheeks flushed like he'd run. Sorry, he said. Shipping needed, something heavy. All good, I said, handing him a blank sign-in sheet I'd pulled from the room's supply. Can you sign here? Received escort. Auditors go wild if I forget. He scribbled RUBEN in loopy letters. I thanked him, smiled, and let him return me to the lobby, where the desk woman offered a mint and a brochure for a wellness lunch and learn like we were all going to make gratitude jars together. Outside, heat hit my face like congratulations. I didn't believe it. I kept walking 3 blocks before I let the breath go. Miriam stepped out of a doorway I hadn't seen and fell into pace beside me, hands in her jacket like anybody's Thursday. Show me somewhere loud, she said. We chose a laundromat, the kind with bolted plastic chairs and a back wall of change machines groaning quarters. Miriam pulled the blinds halfway, then watched the door and the reflection of a soda machine while I airdropped the photos from my phone, still on airplane mode, to the burner, then factory reset the phone and wiped it with bleach. The burner got the same bath after we backed it up to the encrypted stick. We worked like surgeons. Let's see the wound, she said. On the tiny screen, I swiped through our hall. The incident response plan. The visitor logs with Bree's neat lie and Evan's retainer spelled out like a receipt for love. The disbursements pages that tied community fund to a consulting house with the same address as Havenbridge PR firm. The security outreach note about me, about my house, about escalation. This is enough to start a fire, Miriam said quietly. Not enough to keep it fed. She tapped the response plan with a nail. But this, if a jury sees this, they stop hearing the euphemisms. A text buzzed from Aisha, you're clear. I'm not. Phones were pinged around the archive. High humidity. A beat later, I'll go home by a stupid route. You too, disappear. Copy, I wrote back, then deleted the thread, then wiped the keyboard. We changed locations twice, laundromat to a taco stand to a public library, before we let our shoulders drop. Miriam uploaded 3 sample images to a private drop for someone she called the fixer, then locked the stick in a flat pouch under her jacket. We split the evidence, she said. You carry half, I carry half. Nothing that says your name touches my end, nothing that says my name touches yours. What about Aisha? I asked. She knows to breathe small, Miriam said. Back at my motel near the university, new city, new smells, same thin towels. I opened the room door to a square of yellow light and the hum of old air. Miriam did a sweep that would have looked paranoid to anyone who hasn't learned statistics the hard way. Shower curtain, under bed, dresser drawers. Clean. We both sat on the carpet, backs against the bed, the way you do when you're too tired to pretend furniture matters. I told her about the vehicle event protocol, how the words laid a path away from truth with such bureaucratic kindness it made me dizzy. She told me about her first leak a decade ago, a clinic that billed for checkups that never happened. Soft words always, she said. Compassionate fraud. We didn't sleep exactly, we closed our eyes and pretended to. At 2:11 a.m., my prepaid buzzed on the nightstand and kept buzzing until I turned it over. A photo. Grainy, but unmistakable, me in the archive doorway, vendor sticker flashing like a dare. The angle was wrong for a ceiling camera. It was eye level. Taken by a person who'd stood there and watched me step out. Underneath, a text. Ms. Ramirez, we appreciate your enthusiasm for community service. Let us help you correct today's procedural errors. Conference B12. 9 a.m. I stared until the room went slightly off-center. Miriam read over my shoulder, then put a finger under the edge of the phone and slid it across the table like she was moving a chess piece back to safety. Well, she said, voice steady. They've stopped using soft words. I nodded, feeling the accountant's calm arrive like a tide. I'd gone in and stolen the shape of their story. Now they wanted me to walk back through the door with my palms open. Tomorrow, I said, and my voice didn't shake, we don't play defense. I wore the nicest lie I owned, black slacks that said vendor, a blazer that said harmless, and a pen in my breast pocket that was not a pen. Miriam called it the choir mic, button battery, tiny transmitter, one job. If it failed, my watch recorded to solid state. If that failed, my burner ran a dead simple app that uploaded audio to 3 places the moment it felt Wi-Fi. Last check, Miriam said in the motel doorway at 8:12 a.m., palms on my shoulders to square me. You're not here to argue. You're here to let them say out loud what they keep in soft words. Ask for clarification. Repeat back. Make them agree. I nodded. And you? In the building, she said. Not near you. Aisha's fixing doors. The fixer's in a van with coffee and a warrant request drafted, waiting for one sentence we can't unhear. She tucked a strand of hair behind my ear like a sister. If they try to take your phone, you forgot it. If they try to pull you somewhere else, you choose a windowed room and text me the number. I walked into Havenbridge at 8:56. Same eucalyptus, same glass. Same woman at the desk, today with a lemon tea bag on a napkin. Conference B12, she chirped. Your wellness conversation. The word bent in her mouth like it had a cramp. B12 was bright with too clean air. Waiting, the slate blazer man from the archive, a woman in navy with a pearl pin and a face I recognized from a lobby wall, C. Fellows, Community Fund Director, and a third person in an oatmeal sweater holding a clipboard that said Wellness Liaison. A fourth chair waited for me like it had my name in invisible ink. Ms. Ramirez, the blazer said smoothly. Up close he smelled like expensive soap and stress. I'm Nathan Mercer, legal. This is Christine Fellows. And this is Hannah from Wellness. I sat. I did not put my tote down. Nathan folded his hands, letting his watch catch the light. We appreciate your enthusiasm for our records. We've had a procedural hiccup. You entered a restricted archive yesterday. More importantly, you appear to be in possession of internal materials that could be misinterpreted outside of their context. Christine smiled like a dentist. We're here to de-escalate, she said, and to offer you support. I looked at the folder on the table, thick, tabbed, a pen laid diagonally. I didn't touch it. What does support mean in numbers? Hannah's smile brightened by 2 watts. A stipend while we help you reset, she said. And a tailored wellness plan. Stipend, I repeated. So a payment in exchange for returning what I have. Returning misappropriated materials, Nathan corrected, same smile, thinner now. And agreeing not to disseminate fragments that, absent training, might look troubling. Christine laced her fingers. We value community partners, she said. Sometimes our internal documents, incident response plans, donor communications frameworks, are scary without context. I took out my notebook. My hand didn't shake. Okay. Clarify the context for 2 items so I don't misinterpret. 1. The vehicle event protocol, which instructs your team to emphasize weather and fatigue and to avoid mentioning pending reports if an employee dies in a crash. 2. Community fund disbursements, payments labeled consulting to people close to me, including Brianna Dalton and Evan Rains, 3 months before my wedding. Hannah did that thing where a wellness person nods like she's counting your breaths. Nathan didn't blink. We manage reputational risk responsibly, he said. We keep families from reliving trauma in the press. We maintain stability. As for the fund, we retain outside voices to help us reach communities. Reach me, I said. Reach through you, he said before he could stop himself. Then he adjusted a cufflink that didn't need adjusting. To better support your household during a difficult time. Aisha's name on a sticky note flickered in my head, CF equals Shell. I set my pen down beside the folder but didn't open it. So to understand correctly, I said, making my voice as dull as a transcript, you're offering a stipend if I return a dashcam card that shows relabeled pallets, plus internal pages describing a vehicle fatality script you used after my mother's crash. In exchange, I agree not to share those materials and not to discuss retainers you paid to my husband and best friend via the community fund. Christine's smile held, but her eyes made a tiny mistake. Nathan's didn't. We would welcome closure, he said. And we would caution you against making defamatory statements about operational partners. A contractor made an error on the highway. It was tragic. No one here intended harm. There it was, contractor, error, tragic. A line up a hill toward the sentence they wouldn't say. I need clarity, I said softly. My mother, Catherine Morales, met with a Haven Bridge supervisor 3 days before she died about mislabeled hazardous materials. She told him she'd go to state regulators. He told someone. A man in a vest swapped labels on a dock. A truck tailgated her after midnight. She went off the road. Your security outreach log shows a home check, L. Morales, status, escalated a week later. What did you escalate? Hannah's pen paused. Christine glanced at Nathan. Nathan clasped his hands harder. We ensured the home was safe from protest, he said. We routed communications through our council. We activated the vehicle event protocol to protect your family's peace. You called the sheriff before I did, I said. You sent a chaplain who knew my mother's employee number. You kept me in the script. This isn't productive, Hannah murmured. Let's talk about moving forward. You sign confidentiality. We provide support. You delete anything confusing you found in the basement. I opened the folder. Inside, an NDA, a wellness agreement, a pre-filled W-9. Also a check stub, 6 figures, stapled to a donor engagement invoice. Blank except for a line that read consulting, stability. Say it clean, I said, looking at Nathan now because that's where the heat lived. If I sign, you pay me to keep quiet about the mislabeled pallets. And about the protocol you used to shape the story of my mother's death. Christine inhaled like the room had stolen her air. Nathan held my gaze. If you sign, he said, each word pressed flat, we will resolve the matter without further escalation. You will return the card and any reproductions. You will state, if asked, that weather and fatigue contributed, and you will refrain from characterizing routine stipends as bribes. My watch thrummed twice against my wrist, the fixer's signal forgot it. Last question, I said. Who told the driver to follow my mother that night? The contractor acted outside of his work order, Nathan said quickly, and I could hear the scrape as he tried to put the sentence back in his mouth. No one here instructed. Contact, Christine finished softly, eyes on the table. Voice like a woman hearing herself after years of coaching. No one here instructed contact. Miriam would say later that you could feel a building change temperature when truth shows up. In that moment, the air seemed to stiffen. The door opened. 2 people in suits stepped in, not wellness, not HR. The fixer led with a photo ID clipped to her pocket and the kind of voice that has lived in courtrooms. Good morning, she said. Preserve your devices. Hands on the table. Mr. Mercer, Ms. Fellows, this room is being lawfully recorded. No one moves. Nathan's face did a fast inventory of exits and found none. Christine set her pen down like it had weight. Hannah dabbed at her lip with a tissue that didn't need dabbing. I breathed. Not relief, something steadier. The fixer nodded once to me without looking, never breaking the room's spell. Ms. Morales, she said, the first time anyone in this building had called me by my real name, thank you for your cooperation. Do you have materials to turn over? I slid the copy stick from the seam of my jacket and placed it beside the NDA. Yes, I said. And more when my colleague arrives. Behind the glass, 3 yoga mats went by like flags. Somewhere above us, an intercom cleared its throat with an old building's cough. Nathan tried for one last soft landing. We can handle this internally, he said, and the line fell flat between us because soft words only work when everyone agrees to pretend. The fixer didn't blink. This is internal, she said. To the state. Aisha's text buzzed my burner across the table where I'd set it face down, door logs pulled, cameras mirrored. You're covered. I didn't pick it up. I didn't need to. They read rights. They bagged phones. They asked for login codes. The wellness liaison stared at the window like it held a better version of this meeting in another world. Christine whispered something that sounded like I'm tired. Nathan pressed his lips thin, then thinner, then said the first honest thing I'd heard him say, we need counsel. You have one, the fixer said dryly. Now he needs his own. When it was done enough to be called begun, Miriam appeared in the hall, half a smile and eyes that had not slept. She didn't hug me, no TV ending. She just tapped the glass with one finger as if testing a pane that had finally cracked. Breathe, she mouthed. I did. It hurt in a good way. They led Nathan and Christine out 2 by 2, past the lemon tea bag and the lotus relief wall and the scent of oranges designed to soothe. Outside, the day looked like the opposite of a protocol. Messy, bright, true. On the steps, my phone, my old, stupid, life-filled phone, stayed off in the bottom of my bag where it belonged. The fixer said, we're not done, and I said, I know, and meant it without fear. I had proof. I had a recording. I had names inked in their own hands. And for the first time since Evan said this is better, it was. I walked into the heat with my toad on my shoulder and no script on my tongue, and the world didn't tilt. It held. That was the confession. The rest, the headlines, the hearings, the apologies printed on expensive paper, came later. This is the part one kept for the end. When I reached the curb, my breath steadied on its own. No counting. No tricks. I didn't look back.